Feeling stuck in life doesn't always mean you are stuck. Sometimes you're just repeating the same patterns, making the same decisions, and letting the same fears control your life. Hi, I'm Lily, and I have personal experience with feeling stuck in life. And in this video, I'll show you how to get unstuck in your life. So keep watching. Become aware of what kind of stuck you are. Before you can move forward, you first need to understand what's actually keeping you stuck. So, answer the following question. Are you internally stuck, externally stuck, or both? Being internally stuck means that what's holding you back is happening inside you. It could be fear, limiting beliefs, overthinking, a lack of confidence, or repeating the same patterns and behaviors over and over again. In other words, your mindset is preventing you from moving forward. Being externally stuck is different. It means your circumstances are making it difficult to move forward. Maybe you're struggling financially. Maybe you're in a toxic or abusive relationship, dealing with health issues, or living in an environment with very few opportunities. And often it's both. You may be facing difficult circumstances while also struggling with a victim mindset, limiting beliefs, or fear that make those circumstances even harder to change. The reason this distinction is so important is that the solution depends on what's keeping you stuck. If you're internally stuck, the work begins with changing your mindset, your beliefs, your habits, and the decisions you make. If you're externally stuck, you need to start taking small steps toward changing the external factors. And if you're stuck both internally and externally, changing what's happening internally gives you the courage and clarity to change what's happening externally as well. So before you say, I'm stuck, ask yourself a better question. What's actually keeping me stuck? Even if you feel stuck, you may still be progressing. So what does this mean? Remember that feeling stuck doesn't necessarily mean that you actually are. You may look at your life and feel as though nothing's moving, nothing's changing, and you're still in exactly the same place. But progress is not always visible. Even if your external circumstances remain the same, you may still be learning, gaining clarity, becoming more aware, processing past experiences, or gradually preparing yourself to make a change. Just because you cannot see progress, it doesn't mean that no progress is happening. Think of it this way. You are in the middle of your journey. Just because you can't see the destination yet, it doesn't mean you've stopped moving. You're simply in the phase of the process. The feeling of being stuck is temporary. It's not permanent. Eventually, this period will come to an end, and you will look back and realize that even during the moments when you thought nothing was changing, you were still moving forward. Sometimes you feel stuck because you simply can't see the progress you're making. We tend to notice only big visible changes, but many of the most important changes happen beneath the surface. You're learning, you're gaining experience, you're becoming more resilient. Those things may not be obvious today, but they truly matter. Situations keep repeating. You don't break the pattern. Another reason you may feel stuck in life is that you keep experiencing the same situations over and over again. Maybe you end up in the same type of unhealthy relationships. Maybe you keep making the same mistakes, facing the same challenges, or getting the same disappointing results. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I feel lost? It may be because you're caught in a repeating pattern that you haven't broken yet. The first step is to identify the pattern. Ask yourself, what keeps repeating in my life? Then ask an even more important question. What am I doing that keeps creating this outcome? Because if you keep thinking the same way, making the same decisions, and responding in the same way, you will keep getting the same results. Yeah, that makes sense. Real change begins when you choose a different response. You make different decisions. You set boundaries where you never set them before. You walk away from relationships you would have stayed in the past. You stop tolerating behavior that no longer serves you. Yeah. When you change your patterns, your life begins to change as well. That's often the moment when feeling lost starts to fade because you're finally moving in a new direction instead of repeating the old one. I already made an entire video about repeating patterns and how to break them. So if you would like to explore this topic in more depth, I'll leave a link in the description box below. Your limiting beliefs are keeping you stuck. Another thing that may be keeping you stuck is your limiting beliefs. This is incredibly common. Most of us have beliefs that quietly hold us back without even realizing it. So think about whether your limiting beliefs are keeping you stuck in your life. Let's say you have the belief, I will never be successful. Whether you realize it or not, that belief can influence your behavior, your decisions, and the actions you take or don't take. For example, you may not apply for a better job. You may not start your own business. You may not ask out someone you really like. You want to start a YouTube channel, but you never upload your first video. Or you may take the first step, but you give up too quickly because deep down you already expect yourself to fail. So your limiting belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want to change your mindset, you first need to become aware of your limiting beliefs. Start to identify them. Write them down as specifically as you can. Maybe it's, I will never be financially independent. I will never earn more than 2,000 euros a month. I don't deserve a loving relationship. Yeah. Whatever it is, write it down. Once you've identified your beliefs, don't accept them as facts. Instead, question them. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Is it always true? What evidence do I have to support this belief? For example, if you believe you will never earn more than a certain amount of money, ask yourself why. What proof do you really have? Is it based on facts or is it simply a story you've been telling yourself for years? And very often you will see that there is no solid evidence behind your belief. Yeah, it's simply an assumption that has become familiar. It's the first step in how to overcome limiting beliefs. You stop treating them as facts and start treating them as thoughts that can be questioned. Also, ask yourself, who would I be without this belief? This is a fantastic question. Imagine that you genuinely didn't believe your limiting belief. How would you behave? How would you speak? What decisions would you make? Now think about how all of that would affect your life. Yeah? The purpose of this question is to help you see how differently you might live if that belief no longer had power over you. Isn't your fear keeping you stuck? Next, ask yourself whether fear is keeping you stuck. Fear can hold you back in many different ways. It may be a fear of failure, a fear of change, a fear of success, a fear of rejection, or something else. Very often, fear disguises itself. You may think you're simply procrastinating, when in reality, you're afraid of taking the next step. You may think you're a perfectionist, when in fact, you're afraid of failing or being judged. Fear keeps you in your comfort zone, and your comfort zone is your safe place. It's familiar, it's predictable. Your brain naturally prefers what's familiar, even if it makes you unhappy. Bear in mind that your brain chooses familiar struggle over unfamiliar success. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Even if you're unhappy with your job, your relationships, or another areas of your life, you may stay where you are simply because it's what you know. But here's the problem. Your comfort zone may feel safe, but it can also become your prison. So ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid of? Are you afraid of failure, rejection, success, change, responsibility, combination of these, or is it something else? The first step in learning how to overcome fear is identifying exactly what you are afraid of. Once you name your fear, it becomes much easier to face it instead of letting it quietly keep you in the same place. So, how do you overcome fear? First of all, don't wait for your fear to disappear before you take action. Start with one small step. If you're afraid of starting a YouTube channel, for example, upload your very first video. If you're afraid of changing jobs, send one application. If you're afraid of rejection, have that conversation you've been avoiding. The action itself is often the antidote to fear. Another thing you can do is challenge your fear. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could realistically happen? Then ask, if that happened, could I handle it? Most of the time, you will realize that the situation isn't nearly as frightening as your mind made it seem. Finally, don't let fear make your decisions. Let your goals make your decisions instead. Ask yourself, if I let fear decide for me, where will I be 1 year from now? And if I act despite my fear, where could I be? Every time you take action despite your fear, you make that fear weaker. Do you have a victim mindset? Another reason you may feel stuck is that you've developed a victim mindset. When you have a victim mindset, you feel powerless, helpless, as if your life is controlled by other people, your circumstances, or simply bad luck. You believe that there's nothing you can do about your situation or stop feeling stuck in your life. As a result, you spend most of your time focusing on things you can't control. You think about what other people did, what happened in the past, or why life has been so unfair to you. And while all those things may be true, constantly focusing on them keeps you stuck because you have no power to change them. If you want to take control of your life, you need to shift your attention to the things you can actually influence. So ask yourself, what is within my control right now? You can't change your past, but you can change how you respond to it. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your own. You can control your decisions, your habits, your attitude, the skills you develop, and the actions you take every single day. That's where your power is. The moment you stop focusing on what you can't control and start focusing on what you can actually control, you begin to move forward. That's how you stop feeling powerless. I made an entire video about the victim mindset and how to overcome it. So if you would like to learn more, again, I'll leave a link in the description box. Lastly, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So far, you've become aware of what's keeping you stuck. You've identified repeating patterns, challenged your limiting beliefs, faced your fears, and left the victim mindset behind. Now it's time to do something differently. Because to change something, you need to combine awareness with taking action. You can watch hundreds of self-development videos. You can read dozens of books. You can know exactly what you should do. But if you never apply the knowledge in practice, nothing changes in reality. Yeah? Knowledge on its own isn't enough. Applied knowledge is what creates results. You don't need to change everything at once. Start with one small change, one different decision, one small action. Yeah? All those small actions compound over time and they eventually lead to big results. Remember that a tiny step today is far more valuable than a perfect plan that you actually never begin. I believe that taking action is the most powerful thing you can do if you want to move forward. Every result in your life comes from a series of decisions and actions. So if you want different results, you need to make different decisions and most importantly, take action. Yeah. Often by taking different actions that you've taken before. Remember that your life doesn't change just because you wait. It changes because you decide to think differently, act differently, and take responsibility for the direction you're moving in. If you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.